Welcome guys, it's Tattoo Critique episode 6. Let's go. First piece is from Marcus. Marcus says, I've been tattooing for a solid 6 months straight. I've done a few pieces on a trusted friend and a lot on myself. So right off the bat, when I take a look at Marcus's piece, I think, okay, all right. There's some things good, there's some things that are not the greatest, but overall it's a, okay, that's my vibe on it. So let's dive in and take a look. So right off the bat, I want to talk about what I think Marcus did well. So if we zoom in here, we can dive right into these black areas. And I think this black is put in really nicely. And you see that in quite a few places up here in these eyes. The next thing I actually like here is this lining. It's not too bad. Now, is it perfect? No. But is it decent? Absolutely. We have a consistent, steady lines coming down. They're of the same thickness for the most part. They're not too wobbly. You see in a few spots here and there where maybe things didn't work out perfectly, but overall, I think the lining in this piece is pretty decent. And what I think Marcus did is he used a larger liner. We see so many people using such small needle groupings when they're learning, a 3-round liner or just a tight 5 or something, and it's really not the greatest because you're just slicing the skin up and you're building these lines. Start with a little bit larger of a needle grouping and work your way backwards if need be. So nonetheless, the lining here is pretty decent. Now let's move on to where I think the struggle and the problem, which you probably already noticed, is in the shading. What I would call this shading is haphazard. It's a little bit everywhere. You know, we have some black here, this up here. It doesn't make a lot of sense. I could circle all these areas and I think you all get the gist. It doesn't make a lot of sense. And some of that problem comes from just maybe not knowing where exactly to shade. But even if you are going to put black so that you create a shadow underneath one skull, you need to break that black all the way to the edge, all the way up to that line, and it's not there. So you have this weird gap here that doesn't sell the shadow idea. Same down here, we have a gap all throughout here. It's very dark up here, yet we have nothing here, nothing shadowed here. There's just the shadows, the shading doesn't make sense. It's as if it was just put wherever they kind of thought it should be, a little over here, a little here, a little here, a little there. What I would like to have seen you done, Marcus, is draw this picture first. Draw it out on paper and shade it. Shade it how you would want it to be shaded. And if it doesn't look good on the paper, then certainly it's not going to look that good on the skin. Now again, the line's solid. The black fill is pretty solid. It's just shading. And I think that's exactly what you need to focus on, is shading. Working on your shading, and do that on paper, and then do that on fake skin, and then do that on real skin. Have that process there. But again, if your shading's not looking good on paper, it's certainly not going to look good on skin, with the technique or without the technique. Now the great part about this is you can always go back into it later as you develop more, as you understand shading a bit more, and work this out and really make this a decent solid piece. So again, Marcus, work on that shading. I thank you for sending that in, my friend. Our next piece is from, well, I don't exactly know. Again, saved the image, lost the email. So if this is yours, we're gonna talk about it. Right off the bat, when I take a look at this piece, I think, all right, okay, not bad. I see a lot of really good things here. I see some little things, overall, not bad. So let's dive in and take a look. So, no name person, I like this tattoo. I like a lot of things about it. I actually like how simplistic it is. It's relatively clean. I like the stippling you did. I like what looks, for the most part, is some consistent lining. But what takes this piece down a notch is what jumps out at me first. And it's unfortunate, but it's these lines right here. Okay? These lines going around the guitar, just not the greatest. There's a few here and there, double lines or whatnot, but as a whole, it's not bad minus these couple of lines. Now the key to those curved lines is all about getting a good stretch, as always, but also testing it out. Get the machine in your hand how you like it, and what I'll do is I'll turn the machine off even, and just see how my hand feels moving from point A to point B of that curve. Starting here, how does that feel? That feels right. Now I want to move my hand. I want to get in a better position for this line because every line matters. So you get in the right spot for that line. You've already practiced it. Then you run that line. And that should help you a little bit when it comes to those wobbly lines going through curves and different things like that. Hand placement, getting everything exactly the way you want it. plays a big role. And I think that's probably where you went wrong here. Another spot also in those curvature areas is this circle right here. While it's not bad, it is certainly a circle and is somewhat symmetrical. There are just a little pieces here and there. And again, that comes down to getting that comfortable hand positioning and knowing where you're going to start and knowing where you're going to stop and not being afraid to lift up if things start to go sour at all. So thank you for sending this in, whoever you are. Really sorry for losing the email, but thank you for sending that in. If you guys are enjoying this series, do me a favor, give it a like, subscribe if you're enjoying it. Also, the tattoo guides are currently 30% off until February 7th, 2022. Again, that's 30% off. Use code SALE. Now let's get back to it. Our next piece is from Russel. Russel wanted to submit a tattoo for the next video. He says if you ever want to talk about tattoo machines on a video or podcast, let him know because he's a Dan Cuban repair tech, so he may bring some insight on machines and stuff of that nature. Now, first off, I will probably take you up on that because I would love to share your knowledge with our viewers because knowledge is power, so let's spread it. As you guys already saw, this is what Russel can do, and I have to say, I love this tattoo. I would be happy to have this tattoo. It has a mixture of a lot of things. People always say they want black and gray with some color. I think this is how you do black and gray with some color. The colors are rich, things look really good. Now, because he sent it to me for a critique, I have to zoom in and take a look at a couple things and see what we can see. So as you guys can see, it looks fantastic. I love how rich this red is down here. These greens, this light green, this yellow, the little dots of white. I mean, it's just done really, really well. The black is put in really dark where it needs to be dark, which I love, that it gives you that depth. This piece has some sort of depth. You can see into the skull because the black is put where it needs to be. The lining all looks really good. Now, what's hard to do is use a very small needle and create a very long and smooth line. And he does that. He does do that. Now, here is the only spot in this whole tattoo, really, that I saw something that might be worth critiquing, and maybe just this line right here. But that being said, don't ever zoom that far in on something I've done because you're going to find way worse things. I just thought I would point something out. Also, another thing, and this is personal preference, I think it'd be kind of cool if this were darker in here and faded out right about there. Same here, maybe just a little bit darker. But again, that's personal preference. I also really like how he did the inside of this sunflower. Sunflowers can be a real weird thing because they're just not that good looking on the center of them. And the center is huge, but everybody loves sunflowers. But this was well done. It doesn't look ridiculous. It doesn't look like a black blob. The darkness was put in properly to give this the proper look it needs. Little highlights put where they need to be to really sell this piece. So overall, I really like this piece. I just want to say thank you, Russell, for sending this in, and hopefully we'll be in contact. Our next piece is from Keegan. Keegan sent in a few pieces. I think this is the one we're going to focus on. Okay, Keegan didn't really have a lot to say other than really this is the first piece they did any shading in. So if we take a look at Keegan's piece, we can clearly see there are some things they need to work on, and that maybe the first time shading isn't the best time shading. So let's dive in and take a look. All right, Keegan, so if we take a look here, there are some things that initially I look at. So I try to always look for the positive, and here I see some decent lines. You see these lines that are coming down, they're pretty smooth. Right here, this is pretty smooth. I have several lines throughout here that are pretty dang smooth considering. Even some that aren't super smooth are still okay, you know, this coming around here. Different pieces, you can look around, you'll find plenty of lines that are done pretty decently. Now the problem is those immediately get thrown away. You almost forget about those decent things when you see a consistent amount of not so good lines. Now these are right at the top of this tattoo and they're kind of janky. They're all over the place. Some of them are maybe slightly blown out. So there are some lining issues, but overall I don't think that's the worst going on here. I do believe the shading needs some help. I do see what you're doing here. If I were me, I would have just committed to a full black here. I'm not sure. Don't overthink things in the beginning. Full black. Make things simple for yourself. Make this fully black so you don't have to worry about any of that. It's going to pop. It's going to be bold. It's going to be in your face. Here I am. I'm the main piece. I'm the cross. And then if that is in the front, this has a dark shadow on it, right? But what's going on with these wings back here? How come they don't have a dark shadow on them? They're also behind everything. Maybe there's some light back there I don't know of. And the clouds, again, you get this sort of haphazard feeling again where we have this dark and then we just kind of throw down some shading in this downward position. Not really blended together too well. So another thing I said before, and I'm going to repeat it again on this because I can see a lot of work in very similar to this. Did you draw this tattoo beforehand? I'm not saying are you the originator of this tattoo? Did you design this tattoo? It doesn't matter, but did you draw the tattoo? Even if it was already done and somebody handed it to you, did you draw that tattoo? Did you duplicate that to see if your brain can understand where to put different shades? Now, I'm not talking about you particularly, just in general. I do this a lot. I do this for pieces that I'm unsure of. I want to take that on, but I'd feel a little bit better if I drew it and went through the process and understood where the pitfalls might be. This also helps me understand how I want to make my stencil because, I don't need to focus so much on that. That wasn't a big deal. But this part over here that I didn't really care about, very important that I focus the details in that area. So again, I don't think this was drawn in advance. If it was, I think you would have benefited a lot from that. So mainly here, continue to evolve. I'm not trying to kick you down. You're in a process. You're learning, so there's going to be pitfalls and what have you. Thank you so much for sending that in. Our next piece is from Josh. Josh says, Dave, I've only been tattooing for a year. Never in a shop, just tattooing myself and my lovely wife who has been such a champ and courageous enough to be my human canvas. I started on fake skin before moving to real skin and did a plethora of research before doing both. I'm 39 years old with 1 adult and 2 teenage kiddos, so apprenticeship is out of the question for me. Josh is looking for a review to let him know if he should keep going as he's super passionate about it. So let's talk about Josh's work. So first off, I want to take a look at these pieces he has done on fake skin. Now, as you can see, these are nice. You can tell that Josh has some drawing background. He knows how to make a face. He knows where to shade things. He knows where dark and light and different things should go. Some things you would consider when getting into tattooing. He already knows those things, so he practiced those on fake skin and got some really nice results. I think they're really nice. Now, as you go from that fake skin to that real skin, things can get a bit more challenging. There's different things you're working with. Skin reacts differently. And then if we take a look at his work on skin, you can see that he is going places. Things are happening. Are there things he needs to work on? Yes, but we're going to dive in and take a look at those. So this is the first piece I want to take a quick look at. What I want to draw your attention to right off the bat is right here in the center. Now I have to say, this looks really nice. It's hard sometimes to sell the middle of a flower because sometimes they just don't always look good, or it's just difficult to figure out exactly how to make that look. Now this I really like. We have the lights here. It looks like light is hitting it. It just looks nice. I don't know how else to describe it. The blue in here, I like that from a distance, this pops out. It's a poppin' tattoo. Could there be a little bit more? Could there be a little bit more, like, let's say, depth down here? Sure, as it comes up. But overall, it's nice. So here's where the real issue comes into play. If we zoom in on here, it's the lines. There, we got this broken line here, a bit of a thick line here. They don't even come all the way around. They're just kind of here and there. Maybe they're in the darker areas, if you will. But nonetheless, the big issue here is the lining. The lining could use a little bit of work. The color packing, you clearly have that. This color's packed in nicely. You have other colors there. You're working with different colors and what have you. Color packing looking really good. In this piece, I'm going to say work on the lining. And when we jump over to this piece, again, a nice looking piece. The color is saturated nicely. I like the color choices. But again, I think the same issue is here as in the last piece. We get down in here, we start to see these lines are looking a little shaky, and that can happen. It's just a matter of practice and time. Some are done nicely. The line going right along the face here is done well, and that's a really good thing. Had that line not been done well, this whole piece could have gone down a level just because it pops out and it's so obvious. But that line was done nicely. The face is done pretty well. And again, everywhere you look, you just kind of get a little bit of a wobble in the lines. So if I were you, I would definitely take the time to work on those lines because you're going there. You are absolutely going there. Don't stop. Keep moving. Just going to be some more time and practice. But what I would say is really focus and hone in on every line. Every line you do, think of it as a practice set. You want every line to be as good as you can make it. The color packing, again, is there, so You're moving in a solid direction. We're gonna take a look at that final piece you sent. And this I really like as well, because I can see what you really like to do coming through here. I can see this sort of realistic, looks like you're using probably like a 3-round liner or something small to really work these the shading in. And these gray lines are actually quite nice looking. They look pretty decent, really. I will encourage you to, as you work through this piece, is don't be afraid of that black. Really get it in there, because when stuff heals, it's that black that really holds that tattoo together. So don't be afraid of it. So again, just don't be afraid to put that black all the way up where you want it, and even maybe just a little bit past where you want it, just to ensure that that tattoo and that is going to hold. I always add just a little bit more black when I can to ensure that tattoo is going to hold, because black is going to stay the longest and the strongest. I will encourage you not to continue this black out any further. You see this a lot when people are getting into stuff. They take this black out all the way out, and it's just black, and you end up with a really nice piece in here and just a blob of black around the outside. If you're going to take it further, do just that. Lighten it up as you go to pretty much the point of skin, all right? But don't take it out too far. Just work on that lining and let yourself evolve, because you're evolving. It's coming together. I wish you the best of luck.